financial problems, elder law, tax problems, business matters, divorce, personal injury, bankruptcy, your life, your reality. Life is complicated. There is the law and there is reality. Welcome to Law and Reality, sponsored by THAV GROSS. Now here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome to this segment of Law and Reality. Today's focus is resolving the payroll tax issue. Jenny Lingl, good morning.
Hi, Ken. Good to be here today.
Brian Small.
Always a pleasure.
We got the whole crew today. Pat Simasco.
It's a full house. All the brainchilds here.
Jeffrey Kirshner.
I make make it complete.
That's right. We've got five of us. 3 aces and 2 kings.
We are a full house.
Who's what?
We won't know. All right.
We know who the Joker is.
Yes, we do. Everyone's voting for Brian as the Joker. Congratulations,
I was thinking
Brian.
Ken.
Or the wild card.
I was going to say the Joker's usually the wild card, so.
Okay. We're coming up to a new year, so I want to focus first on some tax tips for the new year with Jenny, and then avoiding problems in 2019 as we migrate into talking about payroll taxes. So let's talk about some year-end tax tips. Jenny?
Yep, Ken, unfortunately, I get this question all the time from individuals, and there's only a couple of things that you can really do to decrease your taxes for the year. The main one would be making a contribution to your IRA before April 15th of 2019. There's limitations. If you're under 50, you can only put in $5,500. If you're over 50, it's $6,500. And what that means, if you move $5,500 or $6,500, depending on your age, to your IRA, then you've lowered your taxable income.
You know,
Which is a good thing.
I was going to say, the funny thing is a lot of people consider that December 31 is the deadline in their head. And if you're not regularly investing and you don't know the rules, you could hurt yourself tax-wise when you could save yourself a bit of tax money.
You have up to the filing deadline. And also, you know, if you're self-employed, there's a SEP plan that actually allows you to put a ton of money away. You can put the lesser of $55,000 or 25% of income. But the problem is if you have employees, you have to do the same thing for each employee. So generally speaking, the only people that do SEPs are those that are self-employed.
You know, I got to just argue one thing, though. It's not reducing the tax isn't really the thing to look at.
Saving the money.
It's the tax bracket. So right now, if you're in a lot lower tax bracket, paying the tax now is probably a better thing. Look at putting into the Roth IRA, because when you're retired and if the tax brackets are going to be a lot higher in the future, every client I have wish they would have started with Roth IRAs back while they're working.
If you can meet the income thresholds on a Roth, they're a great thing. I had a client a couple years ago that came in on a post-divorce dispute with his ex-wife relative to the house being underwater and him indemnifying her from the short sale and everything else that came with it. So he had to fork over a lot of money to settle this claim with her. And he had a Roth that he had started like 20 years ago, put in like 20 grand in it, had completely ignored it, hadn't watched it at all. It was worth $180,000. And basically, if you had gotten to 55, you then pull that money out completely tax-free at that point. He was short of 55, so we had to deal with that issue.
The other thing that I do actually myself is instead of using a Roth, I use life insurance, because you can put an unlimited amount into a life insurance, an overfunded life insurance policy that you can pull out as a loan. It's completely tax-free. So just looking at reducing taxes now is not really the smart thing. It's looking in the future, what's the best brackets, when should you pay the tax at the lowest
So it's
bracket.
reducing taxes, it's looking at the bracket, and there's a third component, which you and I often talk about. You need to have a retirement fund.
Absolutely.
So by putting that money away,
Doing something
you're
is
getting
important.
the collateral benefit that Pat's talking about on reducing tax and taking advantage of your bracket. you're getting the benefit Jenny's talking about by reducing your tax, but the big benefit that you and I are always talking about is you got to get to be, when you get to be 65, 70, you need a retirement fund.
Right.
Because you don't want to just be living off of
Doing
Social
something
Security.
is better than doing
Now,
nothing.
businesses have a little bit more ability to do some things. So one of the things that they can do is accelerate their deductions if they're a cash basis taxpayer.
Wait, what does that mean?
So if you have expenses that maybe you would have put off to paying in
Like my
2019.
advertising bill. My advertising bill comes due. I could drag that bill 60 days and pay it, and I could pay it in January. Or instead, I could cut that check December 28th, and then mail
Correct.
the check off to them, and that way I get the deduction in.
Right, I find a
2018,
lot of businesses start paying all of their bills in December because they're taking a look at what happened throughout the year and they're wanting to make sure they get that deduction. The other
I just want everyone to know that THAV Gross would never do any of those strategic things like accelerate their expenses before the end of the year and maybe suggest that people that owe them money hold off on paying them until the next
Well,
year.
but-
Never would happen.
But you know,
That's
Ken,
not holding
as
off
you
paying
said,
them.
it's a bill, it's due. You could drag your feet, and maybe if this were
Yeah,
May,
there's nothing wrong
you
with
know,
doing
there's
that.
nothing wrong with paying your bill and paying it timely.
Brian's looking
No,
like
no, there's
in
nothing. There's nothing wrong
shock.
with paying the bill.
Right.
It's the whole flip side of that of, not wanting to get paid.
It's a very difficult thing to say to someone, please don't pay me.
But it goes back to the same thing. If the tax brackets are lower this year, you should pay the tax this year because you don't want to pick up that extra income next year.
You have to evaluate
But
that
if next
issue as
year's
well.
bracket's going to be lower, then you want to do the opposite.
Okay,
Well, fortunately for companies, at least corporate levels now, you're capped at was it 21% now is the corporate level
Right.
for tax, which is significantly reduced from previous years.
Because if you're a professional service corporation, you had to pick up that tax at 35%. Lawyers, doctors, accountants, anyone doing, that was doing professional services, that's another tax planning issue. I want to move to resolutions. We're coming up to a break, but rather than year-end planning, resolutions, things that we've talked about over the years. File your taxes on time. Why is that
Absolutely.
important?
If you don't file timely, you end up with a 25% penalty. It's a huge penalty, and it's a waste. It's an absolute waste.
I thought the resolutions were the things that you do on December 31st, that you decide to go to the gym on January 1st.
Well, I'm also
gonna
going to
keep
do a
these
resolution that says this year I'm filing my tax return on time so I don't get a 25% penalty. We'll take a break and we'll come back and talk about a couple more.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV Gross today, 888-235-HELP. Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
You're all set to retire. You have your home paid off, money in the bank, and sound investments. But if you're not careful, all the things that you work so hard for can disappear. At Samasco Financial, we'll help you prevent that. We go beyond ordinary asset management. We'll safeguard everything that you have by creating a plan made specifically for you. How much can you afford to lose? Nothing. Protect the people that you love and the things that you have. Call Samasco Financial today.
You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirshner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
All right, so welcome back. All right, so we were talking about resolutions, Brian. So Jeff, what's your resolution for 2019?
I've got a list, making certain that I file my taxes on time.
Give us the short list.
Making certain that I contribute to my retirement, and be extra nice to Brian.
Gotta be nice to Brian.
Pat?
Boy, too far ahead for me to even think about it.
Brian?
There's resolutions. You know what? I'll tell you something. I don't make New Year's resolutions. Never have and never will, because I believe
Two or three were no resolutions.
No. There's a
You're
reason
going to
for
have
it.
to tell us why you don't make a resolution. I don't think that was the question, but go ahead.
Is this a long story?
It's not going to be, because when the clock gets down 10 seconds, I'm moving on to
It's
Jeff.
getting longer. The answer is because I don't put myself out to make something different on a one time a year. I try to improve myself every day of the
You
year.
tell me you're just perfect.
Wait, there
all
should
the
be
way
there should
around.
be like a halo graphic up here because he's such
My
an angel.
goodness. Jenny, what's your resolution?
I'm going to try and live in the moment more. Less stress, enjoying family more, and not worrying always
That's
so
a
much
good one.
about the next day.
My resolution is to try and be meaner and tougher to Brian. How's that?
Here, here.
I like it.
Try it.
There we go. All right, let's talk about payroll taxes. All right, so,
How exciting.
well, first of all, I think the resolution should be, if you're a business and you're struggling with this payroll tax issue, your resolution should be that payroll tax deposits are not a discretionary matter. You have to make your payroll tax deposits. But when I say that, Jenny, what do I mean by that?
Well, what you mean is a lot of business owners, they make the decision when they pay their payroll is, are we going to send in the payroll tax deposits? Are we going to make the deposit? Or are we going to pay our other bills? Often what happens is they're running short on cash, so they decide not to pay the IRS and instead pay their suppliers or the rent. And the problem is when the IRS catches up, they have a much further reach than your other creditors.
Yeah,
It
but
becomes a
there-
huge problem.
But if they don't do that, if they don't take that step to borrow from their uncle at that point, they're going to close their doors next week. And so there's a fine line. There's
But
a balancing
it's a
test.
non-dischargeable
It
liability.
is a
in bankruptcy.
non-dischargeable liability in bankruptcy. However, they're not suggesting that it's a right thing to do. I'm saying this is the reason why it's done.
Maybe
Because-
they need to shut the doors. Maybe they've been chasing this
Well,
for
you
years.
know-
I submit to you, if you suggest that they don't pay their payroll taxes, Uncle Sam's resolution is
Is to
going
ought
to
to
be
be.
to incarcerate
Yeah,
you,
well.
Mr. Small.
No, they have to pay their taxes, but you're looking at what
I understand
happens.
your
The
point.
logic is
That's the reality.
that oh my God, I got to make payroll, and I've got to pay the rent, and
So
gotta
you-
pay
somebody
rent,
didn't
yeah.
somebody didn't pay. I got this receivable out there. If I just get the receivable in, I can catch everything up.
But
the
Brian-
receivable never comes.
And the problem
And it
mushrooms
escalates.
so fast because the payroll tax liability becomes so big so quick.
Right, well, there's huge penalties that happen, but what I find with people when they don't make that first deposit, oftentimes they miss the second. And what happens is maybe you were in the crunch and you really were going to miss one, but then they get used to not paying it and used to nothing happening right away. So something that they could have limited to maybe just a 1 month problem becomes a 2-3-year
it's-
problem.
Once you don't pay that first one, then in your mind it becomes discretionary, where you really want to go from the standpoint of saying, I have to run the business in a manner that allows me to make the deposits. If not, it's time to find a new business. That's the reality. If you can't pay your payroll taxes, you're not in the right business.
Let me throw this as the elder law guy. Moms and dads, when you get the call from your son for that loan, don't loan him the money. Because they won't pay you back, they won't be paying any other. It's just going in a
because their
deeper,
business
deeper,
is just
deeper hole.
sucking down and losing money is
Well,
what's
Ken,
happening.
I'm
They
not
have to
gonna go
change
that
you got
far.
to change the operation.
You do. Sometimes what happens is when I meet with clients that have payroll problems, sometimes they've just buried their head in the sand. They've taken too much money and they've not thought about it. Other times maybe they lost a major client, but they have a plan to get back on track that's feasible and makes sense, and they have a history of doing that. So you have to look at what actually caused
Yeah,
the issue.
and how can you help them trim the costs of their business? I had a client once that had a horrific payroll tax problem, and when I sat and met with them, they had way more payroll than they needed. They had a human resources department that they didn't need. They didn't need any human resources department. They needed to get rid of the human resources in the department so that they could then operate profitably, is what it came down to.
So you're
But-
Scrooge. You told them to fire everybody right before Christmas.
You know what?
It wasn't before Christmas, but basically what I said to them was, "You've given me a list of 35 employees." I said, "Come back to me
With 20.
With 20.
Yeah.
Otherwise, close your business down." And they were able to do that.
Yeah.
Nobody likes letting people go, but you have to run the business profitably. Otherwise, it's
Not
going
a
to fail
country
anyway.
club.
Right, and we sat there. I was in that meeting with Ken, and they didn't like it, and they didn't want to do it. And Ken said to them, "Do you want to put 15 people out of business and out of work, or 35?" Because that's what's
true,
going
yeah.
to happen. So when they looked at it that way, they did go home and were able to come up with a list because they looked at it and said, "We do want to save
Your
jobs."
classic one, we had it was all over the newspapers a while back, a month or 2 months ago. Professional Education Services Group, that was the company that was employing all the substitute teachers. All of a sudden there was this big announcement they closed. As soon as I heard that, my comment immediately was, it had to be from not paying their payroll taxes. And then as soon as the articles came 2 days later, they weren't paying their payroll taxes and government shut them down. You don't really have a choice in that situation. That becomes, they had employed 15 to 2,000 substitute teachers. Imagine not paying your payroll taxes quarterly on 2,000 employees. Big liability there. So the bottom line on payroll taxes is, and first of all, payroll taxes, we're talking about FICA, Medicare, federal withholding on the federal level, state taxes, we're talking about sales tax and state withholding taxes. Those need to get paid. There's no way around it. So let's do a case study to kind of illustrate it. Now, just introduce the name of the company is Pete's Tool and Die. They got 35 employees. They've been in business since 1959. We're going to talk about Pete's Tool and Die right after the break.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV GROSS specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
Will I outlive my money?
Medicaid is so confusing.
A will, or do I need a trust?
What if mom needs to go in a nursing home?
At Samasco Law, we have the answers to all of these questions. Our attorneys will eliminate the confusion and develop a plan that's right for you. We are dedicated to veterans benefits, assisted living, and nursing home care. Samasco Law can help prepare you for a long future. Call Samasco Law today. Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
Time for announcements. Want to remind our viewers to listen to us for Law and Reality Live on Praise Network, 93.5, 98.3, and 99.9 FM. Tuesdays, 10 o'clock a.m. and Saturdays, 7 o'clock a.m. Then again on KISS 105.9 Sundays at 7 a.m. Also, check out and listen to us for Law and Reality Here and Now on WMUZ AM 1200, Saturdays 7 a.m. and 2:30 p.m., and WMUZ FM Saturdays at 11 o'clock p.m. Be sure and sign up for our monthly contest. Free $50 Visa gift card, Law and Reality golf hat, and copy of my book, Dump Your Debt. Just go to the website, pop in your email address, and you're entered into the contest. We have a seminar coming up on Wednesday, January 9th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. It is time to eliminate the debt. This is a starting of a new year. You want to get a fresh start. You want to look at your debt that you have, get rid of it early on in the year so that 2019 becomes a great year for you. We go over all the methods that we use to preserve future income for you and your family, how to eliminate debt using bankruptcy, how to eliminate debt using our special debt resolution system that we do, which is outside of bankruptcy. Jenny Lingl is going to participate and do a special segment on how to resolve tax issues. The attendees get a free copy of my book, Dump Your Debt. Sign up at thavgross.com, lawandreality.com, or do it the old-fashioned way and call 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-2357. I want to remind you, you can always come in at THAV GROSS for a free consultation. Just call 888-235-HELP or go online and sign up. If it's debt issues or estate planning issues with Brian, elder law issues with Pat Simasco, tax issues with Jenny Lingl, criminal law issues with Corey Silverstein, and disability and workers' comp issues with Jeff Kirshner, all of that's available. Just call the office or go online, request a consult, and we'll schedule you in. Also, understand something. When you come in for a free consult, it's not a meet and greet. When you come in, it's an opportunity to really have your problem analyzed thoroughly so that you know what your options are, and then you can proceed forward and make a decision. Also, go online and get our free reports. We have a brand new report, Resolving Tax Issues, The Real Solutions, written by Jenny Lingl and myself. And then we also have How to Save Your Home from Foreclosure, Business Formations, Loans and Grants for Small Businesses in Detroit and Michigan, and The Retiree's Guide to Social Security from Pat Simasco. I want to thank our sponsors, THAV GROSS, Simasco Law, Jeff Kirshner Law, and law offices of Corey Silverstein. Now back to the show.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Nothing provokes panic and fear like the threat of a school shooting. Unfortunately, we've seen a sharp increase in students making copycat threats in order to gain notoriety. I'm Macomb County Prosecutor Eric Smith. Students, this behavior will not be tolerated. Felony charges will be brought against anyone who threatens the safety of our schools. Parents, please talk to your children and pass along this message. If you threaten our schools, it will cost you your future.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
All right, so let's talk about Pete's Tool and Die. So they got 35 employees. Here's their problem. They lost a couple of big accounts in 2016, and it's been a struggle for them since. 2016, they fell behind in their payroll taxes for $50,000 because it was more like in the third quarter they started having trouble. 17 was a disaster. They owe $135,000. 18, Pete has not filed his payroll tax returns for the first 3 quarters. He's put all the cash that he has into the company. He's got no equity left in his home. He took out a second mortgage on his home, put all that money into the company. He owes $100,000 in credit card debt. So things are not looking great for Pete so far. But there is good news on the horizon. He's just learned that he's been approved for 3 great projects in 2019, and he's going to make a boatload of money in 2019 if he can keep the company afloat with this payroll tax problem. So, Jenny, Brian, Pat, Jeff, what's the strategy for Pete?
So,
Get divorced, take all the money, buy a big boat.
Big boat strategy. Okay? So we got up on the wall we have the big boat strategy. Anyone else want to throw one out there? Brian?
No, I like.
You have a speedboat.
I really like the big boat
How
strategy.
about wait the speedboat strategy? Get a speedboat, take all the money, and get out of town really fast.
That's what it's going to take.
I'm more of an ostrich that bury my head theory, but that's just me.
Jenny,
Okay, we got the
what's your theory, Jenny?
So Pete, because he has these new projects, very likely wants to stay in business. It's a very common situation, and right now where he's got the 3 years, is about the time where an IRS revenue officer stops by the business. That is somewhat the time to panic, because at that point you're not compliant because you haven't filed your returns. You're not making current tax deposits, so you're really at risk of them levying your bank accounts, your accounts receivable.
Can I be Pete for a second?
Sure.
And you be the IRS person?
Yes.
Before you start talking, I just want to say something to you. I want to stay in business. I want to get rid of the $100,000 of credit card debt that I've incurred, and I want the money that I put back into the company back. Those are my concerns. Now, I understand you might be worried about the payroll taxes, but I think I should get my money back.
As the IRS, I would say, if you want to stay in business, write me a check for $300,000 and I'll leave.
Would you also suggest to me that if that's my attitude, I shouldn't be talking to you?
Well, that's not his money though, because he withheld his client, his payroll tax is your employer's money, right?
So how,
I
solve my
see these
problem,
all the
Jenny.
time. So they say revenue officer came by, I say come into my office immediately tomorrow. And the first thing that we do is we work on getting the returns filed, and I say, when's your next payroll? And they say, well, it's Friday. And I say, okay, is your deposit due Wednesday? We're going to make the current deposit, because a lot of people start to scramble and start to try paying on the back. That doesn't do us any good. I then send a letter via e-fax, now very easy, to the revenue officer stating that the returns will be filed by this date, next tax deposit is due, I'll be faxing that to you. Please send me a summary of contact and let's schedule their meeting. And what we want to do, by doing that, it places a hold on the account, because then they give us an appointment 3 weeks out to 4 weeks out where we can come in with
You
request.
get compliant, and then they give you a payment plan on the arrearage?
Right, so it depends on his situation. It might be a payment plan, or it might be an offer and compromise for the business. The IRS is going to assess Pete as a responsible party for the payroll taxes, so he's going to have some personal liability that's not dischargeable in bankruptcy.
All right, we got a minute left. I got 2 quick questions. Brian, can you get rid of his credit card debt?
We can. We could probably, in this situation, we could do debt resolution. It's possible that we could even do a Chapter 7 for Pete.
And Jenny, can you get rid of his the assessment against him individually, or if he keeps the business going, will that go away?
Well, if he keeps the business going, the business may pay it. We would probably look to do an offer and compromise for Pete. We may also do one for the business.
Interesting last question. If I didn't tell you he had these great projects in 2019, would the strategy be different?
We would first be looking to see if there's things he can cut to make himself profitable in 2019. Whether he made the adjustments when he lost the contracts.
Still would have made him eligible probably for a Chapter 7, at least to get rid of the
credit card debt. And offer and compromise to, if he closed the business down, he could do an offer and compromise to get rid of the payroll tax liability. That's why you said, that's why you were a little bit hedging on payroll taxes at the beginning of the show, because the offer and compromise is out there, right?
Absolutely.
Have a great week. We'll be back next week with Law and Reality.